Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Madan Mohan Rao, Research Director at Your Story Media. And on behalf of all of us at Your Story, I want to welcome you all to today's this panel discussion on how open source tools are reshaping the technology industry. While COVID-19 spawned several new challenges for businesses across the globe, it also paved the way for accelerated digital transformations. This helped many enterprises keep their head above water. As the world gravitated towards digital first strategies, open source software helped them close the gap in technological implementation. According to a Red Hat survey, 60% of IT leaders said that enterprise open source software was either very important or extremely important to their organization's enterprise software strategy. What stands out about open source is that it democratizes access to tools developed by talented developers that might be hard to find. Take the example of CoWIN. The Indian government recently made its digital platform for vaccine registration open source for all countries to access, adapt, and use. Plus, open source enables enterprises to leverage emerging technologies like AI, ML, and blockchain to power long term business growth while optimizing costs. Open source backed tools have immense potential to drive impact for enterprises and enable them to unlock their hidden potential in the digital age. To help us deep dive into the way they are transforming technology can access implementations, we have with us Peter Thomas, distinguished engineer from Intuit India. Peter is the creator of the Karate Test Automation Framework, an avid open source enthusiast. Peter created his first open source project, CB to XML, on SourceForge way back in 2004. Peter is an alumnus of SP Jain Institute of Management and Research and has worked with companies like Yahoo and Tech Mahindra before joining Intuit India. He is among the 15 recipients of the prestigious GitHub open source grants, which aim to support and fund open source maintainers and contributors in India. Welcome aboard, Peter.
Thank you, Madan. It's great to be here.
Our second panelist is Sandeep Anandam Pillai, founder and chief product officer at CrediWatch. Sandeep has more than 14 years of experience in software development, management, data warehousing, and machine learning. He earlier worked with companies like Oracle, ThoughtWorks, and Schneider Electric. Welcome aboard, Sandeep.
Hey, good to be here.
Great. Let's delve into the questions now. We've got quite a few questions lined up ahead of us. I want to begin with a couple of questions here for Peter. Peter, how has the evolution of open source technologies panned out in India? What are some of the key factors that have contributed to its rise as a technology? Peter?
Yeah, sure, Madan. And I think you covered a lot of ground in your intro. That was great. And you talked about CoWIN and how the government of India is actually doing a lot of open source, right? And we all talk about digital India. So one of the things I've been around since the 90s, and I remember the days when the Linux user groups were a big thing. And I think India has this base of open source enthusiasm that kind of started from the Linux and the free software movement. And I think over time, it's obviously with all the IT companies and all the work that's done out of the Indian software big cities, more and more developers got into the ecosystem. There's things moved away from. There's more of non-Linux. For example, I personally do a lot of work on Java, so that has been more prevalent. So yeah, I think that base of as I said, the 90s and the whole open source roots being very deep in India has something to do with it. The second point I wanted to talk about is just the fact that open source appeals to everyone. I mean, in fact, I wonder why more people don't do it. Especially to youngsters, there is this certain feeling of liberation and freedom that you get because there are not too many rules in open source. Anyone today can just go on the internet and start cranking out code and publishing it for the whole world to see. And I think particularly in India, we have this huge base of young fresh graduates coming out of the industry, more and more internet penetration, mobile usage, making its way to the most rural parts of India. I think all of that's added up to this current wave of open source that we see. There's a statistic I saw, when you talked about the GitHub Awards, and at the time they announced that I think they estimated around 5.8 million Indian developers doing open source on GitHub, and it's just increasing, right? So I think I'm quite excited because I do feel that India can do more in having open source projects, but I think we are getting there. And GitHub is certainly, the place to be. I remember the days of SourceForge, and no one knows what SourceForge is today. I think it's all GitHub. And one more point I want to make, I think one more point I want to make is I see a healthy trend that, for example, fresh graduates, I see that in my kids, they are actually having GitHub accounts. They are, putting code out there. That awareness that open source can perhaps help in your career is, I think, a new-ish thing in India. So I'm quite personally excited to see that happen, and yeah, full power to those folks.
Thanks, Peter, for that very broad overview and that encouraging note on the future of open source. Can you tell us a little bit more, some specific details about how companies like Intuit India are nurturing a culture of experimentation with open source tools and APIs? Peter?
Yes, sure. Yeah, that's so. As you already said, and um, I'm the creator of Karate, which was created 4 years back. So one thing that I was really happy about when I went through the process at Intuit, my employer for open sourcing Karate, was that it was so seamless. I as opposed to other companies that I've worked with, I think the process was much more realistic, and there's a lot of support. And even today, there's tremendous amount of support that I get. It's definitely done a lot of good for me and all that. But yeah, speaking about Intuit, I like to think of myself as one of the pioneers in the India side, but certainly after seeing the success of Karate, there's been a whole lot of other folks who have stepped up and started to open source. So we have a couple of other, successful open source efforts from the India office of Intuit. But overall, for example, there are plenty of initiatives. I am part of the committee actually in the the India site that runs all these open source initiatives and tries to get more employees excited. It's kind of easy, as I said, because I think today there's this great aspiration amongst many of the, especially fresh graduates, to work and contribute to open source. It kind of ticks off some of those needs that you have to make an impact and make a dent in the universe and all that. So that's great, and I totally believe that. But yes, one example is that Hacktoberfest is actually coming up. So we are in the middle of the planning and figuring out how do we rally together all the developers who want to use the opportunity to contribute, because it's a time when the entire world kind of comes together and tries to support all developers to do open source. So yeah, Intuit has been super successful. We use a lot of open source. We are big on Kubernetes. We've actually acquired a company and they are part of our stack. It's Argo, if you want to look it up, that is a very core piece of our infrastructure and our releases and our deployments and production workloads. I think it's a cliche at this point to say that I think the entire internet pretty much runs on open source. So yeah, we are thankful that we have got so much of open source. So we are doing our best at Intuit to contribute back and really make a difference.
Thanks so much, Peter. I think you're bang on target. The internet is powering much of the goods that we use on the internet these days. Let's turn to Sandeep now. Sandeep, earlier I mentioned that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. But can you tell us how has the uncertainty due to the COVID pandemic affected adoption of open source technologies? Sandeep?
So I think open source adoption, like Peter mentioned, that has always been there. So people in by nature are curious, and the fact that software was proprietary and restrictive, I think maybe that was the reason why open source kind of got initiated. You wanted to share and you wanted to solve for a curiosity, and then it led to other things, right? Because as the curiosity is satisfied, knowledge grows, and then you build new things. That's how it kind of evolved, I guess. As a developer, open source is like a candy shop, right? Because we love it, and open source has always been great, but the pandemic has changed the way we communicate, we build, we work together, right? It's more important to integrate, to work across platforms, to cross work with each other technically, because you can't anymore meet each other, but you want to adopt. So I think the adoption of open source has been very high. And like Peter mentioned, the internet runs on it. The cloud service providers are primarily based out of an open source platform. They tweak it, fine tune it, make it better, make it more secure. So I feel that while the adoption was always good, it's just kind of, this has been that hockey stick moment for us, right? It's just skyrocketed a lot more. In my own place, we are a small startup, right? And we need so much of remote networking, security. We work with banks, so we cannot afford to breach anything. So we turn to open source for all of this. We turn to open source firewalls, open source connectivity systems, open source like Dockers, right? It's a great open source tool. I had to sit with each other. I had to have hardware in the building, and I couldn't go into a building. So the best alternative was run a Docker on your laptop and get things done, because I couldn't give him connectivity to a machine that is there. So we started adopting a lot of this, and when I speak to peers in the industry, everyone's kind of gone the same way. They've used. Another thing about open source is that it bypasses that commercial hindrance that many small firms like us, and in general people don't want to take up, right? You don't want to pay for everything, and open source kind of helped us bypass that and get the best of class stuff almost for free. And then it also created a whole new industry of remote consultants for open source. I've seen open source consultants that I reach out to in the COVID to say, hey, I want to put this firewall, but I'm not the expert. I just know it works really well. Can you help me do that? And there's a person now who's it's created an opportunity of a job. So I think the COVID is that that point of when it was a moonshot probably for open source in the adoption. While there was always this, so earlier, if you wanted to apply to a big company, you had to know good tools. Now you need to know how to solve the problem. You don't really need to know the tool, because you can use any other open source tool, and as long as you solve the problem, it gets done. So I think that's been an interesting change, the way I have seen how COVID has reshaped our thinking. And the other thing, of course, has been that large companies have always supported open source, especially in the past 10, 12 years. Any open source tool is usually backed by a big giant, right? At least the very popular ones. So that's kind of also helped in build confidence. So I always kind of, when you're talking of the success, it depends on adoption. End of the day, it's adoption, and it's not the adoption of the developer. Because at the end of the day, it's the adoption of a business to accept that you've built something on an open source and I'm ready to buy it from you. And some of the toughest customers in the world are in the finance sector, right? Telling them to buy an open source piece is not an easy sell. They'll be like security and the whole bunch of things. But when you have a large corporate backing that open source and saying, I give you a certain amount of credibility, that has become easier. So even enterprise level, it's seen that COVID has changed how people look at open source, how they adopt to it. And I think it's been a great moment for open source.
Thanks, Sandeep, for adding those very important elements of trust and credibility. Another big trend in this field today, Sandeep, is cloud. Cloud adoption is emerging as a preferred strategy for businesses. It helps combine large-scale innovation with productivity while also optimizing costs. So how can open source technologies impact cloud adoption in India, you think, Sandeep?
Right. So, like Peter mentioned, right, most clouds actually run on open source. So, whether you're looking at the open source stack that is used by Microsoft or any of these people today on their cloud platforms, right, open source is kind of the baseline driver for a cloud today. And now cloud providers are looking at making it compatible with each other, right? There is regulation and things that tell you that you cannot stick to one cloud, because what if the cloud went down? Right. So we are actually, especially in certain critical applications, which deals with defense, finance, health, stuff like that, we are supposed to work across clouds. And open source, and just kind of to step back, open source for me is not just the software, right? Open source is the method of communication also. Earlier, like even a Word had a proprietary saving logic of how it saved its Word file. No other software could open it. Today, Word is XML, right? It's open sourced. It's method of communicating, it's giving that interoperability. So open source is not just the software you build, but how you talk to each other. So we have protocols running today which are getting open source, APIs that are running, which runs on standard, like Swagger started with 1 and 2, and then they open source the entire OS3. Many people across the system use OS3 as a standard, and I do consider that open source because you're sharing your knowledge. And that is, I think cloud is looking at interoperability. So I can take a Kubernetes cluster, which I built in AWS, and launch it in Azure without really changing anything, because they're both supporting it, because the fundamental under that is an open source technology, right? So cloud runs on open source, and now they're getting open on sharing also with each other. As this remote and not wanting to, I'm from Bangalore, I hate to get onto the road here. and not wanting to travel, going remote, is going to promote cloud more, because I want a graphics card emulator to run my machine learning model, but I can't buy a laptop for every person. 100 graphics card emulators that I buy at 2-3 lakhs or whatever is not a cost I can afford. But I can just spin up a machine on a cloud, build it, test it, and I'm happy. Then I invest on it. So cloud, again, your Kubernetes, your the Tesseract stacks or any of these things that we use to kind of run your OCI, they're all open source, right? And they are adopted by cloud. So there's every cloud provider gives you open source stacks available, ready to use, deployable today. So cloud and open source are very kind of they're like their best friends and are very codependent, right? They cannot ride independently anymore. So I think it's again for us it's been very interesting times, and yeah, cloud is definitely going to be a big portion of the open source, maybe the only portion at some time when everything was cloud.
Thanks, Sandeep, for those very interesting insights. From cloud, let's shift now to other topics such as automation and testing. Let me ask Peter this question now. Peter, you've been very vocal about the importance of test automation for APIs. So how do you see open source projects making a difference in performance testing? Peter?
Yes. And yeah, I think especially after I started my journey with karate, I am now this champion of, you need to test, your quality has to be like up there. And interestingly, and now I felt, in fact, once I've kind of stepped into this mode, I feel a lot more projects should be aware, and I kind of like the space that I got with karate in a sense, because I don't think that many other projects that worry about automation and quality to the extent that I believe karate does. And of course, I'm highly biased here. But yeah, I'm kind of glad to now be a champion in my organization, right? I'm driving teams to, hey, you need to test better. I review their test cases, and I've kind of grown into this role of being a test automation guru or something like that, which is kind of cool sometimes. But yes, I get a lot of questions. So yes, and I think to pick up on Sandeep's point, he made a great point. Like in the past, everything was like, if you know this tool, only then are you valuable as an employee. And I'm so glad that democratization happened because of the push of open source, and the concepts matter more than these particular tools. So karate is now one amongst a set of tools that can do automation. And you talked about performance. So yes, karate has a story where it has a mode where it can actually performance test microservices, which is not surprisingly a very, very popular choice for teams. So yes, in fact, I have an interesting roadmap where can we put karate on the cloud, for example. Sandeep talked a lot about the cloud. So I'm looking forward to things like that. But yeah, I'm quite happy that I think I've made a difference where perhaps we are kind of living in a microservices era right now, and I think quality is one of those things that's kind of forgotten sometimes. People just rush to do microservices, and then people realize, oh my god, now we have this maintainability problem. You have all these services all over the place, and people are now actually facing a little bit of backlash. And I think karate has come at the right time. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why it's so successful. But yeah, it's super relevant. So I'm kind of happy that I'm able to contribute to quality and test automation from that perspective.
Thanks, Peter. You mentioned karate a few times. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey in creating karate, the challenges you faced while developing it? Share with us some more details. Peter?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a long story, but I'll keep it short. As I said earlier, it started 4 years back. So I think late 2016, the trigger for this was I was going through some test automation suites that my team was maintaining and responsible for, and the team was stuck. I stepped in, I looked at the code, and I didn't like it at all. And I'm kind of opinionated, and you can see some of that in karate perhaps, but I distinctly felt that there is a better way to do things. And I think I came up with this very new approach that people hadn't thought of before. To give one example, and this might be a little deep example, but I believe being able to validate payloads, and payloads today are JSON mostly. I believe that the aspect of validating whether a JSON matches your expected baseline is kind of an undersolved problem, at least before karate came along. So I'm glad that karate solves that to a very in a very good way, in my opinion, of course. So that was the root, the start of karate. I was spending some time with teams in Intuit, and then we decided to open source this early 2017, the next year. Best decision we ever made, because there was a bit of a debate: should we open source this? Is this worth open sourcing? And I hate to imagine what could have been, right, if we didn't open source it. But open sourcing it, and you asked about challenges, Madan, right? Certainly, there were a lot of questions. Do we really need this? Is this really good? Aren't the existing solutions good enough? I was getting to that debate, and perhaps I didn't do a great job of selling karate and getting a lot of people behind it. But I collaborated with the leaders of Intuit, and we decided to, let's open source this. And if people like it, it's a good sign that, you're onto something. And that's exactly what happened. And the rest is like, yeah, it just started from there. So I think the short answer to your question is, getting that initial set of users to look at karate, even after open sourcing, was a huge challenge, right? I mean, you actually have to get into a bit of marketing and selling. I kind of plugged karate on LinkedIn a few times, and I think that had an effect. And I think the breakthrough happened when one of the prominent bloggers in the test automation space actually picked it up and said, you know what, this is a good tool. I reviewed it and you should check it out. And I think that kind of tipped the whole thing in favor of karate. But yeah, there are plenty more stories. Adoption, it's even today a challenge. I find it very interesting too when I go to a new team that hasn't heard of karate and is very happy using some existing solution. And in my mind, they're not aware that something good, better exists. And that aspect of trying to change behavior of teams is something I worry about a lot at Intuit, along with a lot of other leaders. It's one of those very hard problems to solve in computing. So yeah, I thought I'll mention that as well, Madan.
Thanks, Peter. It's great to hear how much passion and excitement you have for this field. Let me turn now to Sandeep. Sandeep, some other exciting and emerging technologies that we see now are AI, ML, data analytics. So how do you see open source paving the way for these other technologies? Sandeep?
So one of the things about anything when we deal with data, about data analytics or AI or ML is the foundation for it is data, and data is everywhere, right? One of the things that used to happen earlier is whoever ran a model or whoever did analytics was working on a limited set of data that they had access to. What open source has done, and they've done it, some of them have done it interestingly, they've open sourced it, but they collect the feedback, right? So when you open source it and then you kind of start looking at aggregating intelligence from multiple places, the quality of analytics and models also improves. And Google is one of the best examples of how they do it. They open source their projects, but they still get the feedback and they're able to kind of improve on the models, right? So I think the other thing about why I think open source plays an important part and why it has helped in the whole data analytics is usually we had to get people and train them to do data analytics because there was nothing that they could learn off the shelf outside. Today, schools and colleges promote open source technologies. Large corporates promote data science using open source, and these are courses that they learn. And because it's so affordable and kind of reachable for any student community, the number of experts has gone up. And that is net data science is a collective thing. It's not an individual thing, right? So the net effect has been that there has been an overall improvement, and the fact that this whole thing, right, you get your share. So people got open source in a very easy to adopt manner. It was free, so they started giving back to that community. So that whole like Tesseract or any of them you look at today, the way it has grown, TensorFlow or any of the other models are out there which we're using, even like XGBoost models, things that people can use for machine learning. They all became better over time because one, more people worked on it, more ideas got together, and they contributed it back, right? So I think open source is a great way to go. It's collective knowledge. It's helping the entire industry and the system grow. But it comes, of course, with its own, you need to use it for the right thing and use it the right way. That's the only thing that is important when you open source something. But I think it's net, most people are good. So it's a great thing to have out there.
Thanks, Sandeep. This has been a fantastic discussion. Before we finish, I want to ask each of you to give some advice to the aspiring developers in our audience. They're looking to leverage open source intelligence in this very challenging economic landscape. What advice would you give them on how to improve their open source quotient? Let's begin with you, Peter?
Okay, sure, Madan. Yeah, great question. One thing is, just go and try to contribute to open source in some small way. I think one of the common questions that I get from especially people new to software or development or open source in general is, what should I do? Where should I start? And I think a lot of people don't start because they're worried that the code or the idea is not good enough. So my sincere advice is, don't worry about that. In fact, I think the beauty of open source is that when it starts, and I'll give you the example of karate, right? When I released karate, when I look at that code today, 4 years later, it was so horrible. I'm like wondering, why on earth did I write such bad code? Or, it was not bad code, it was raw, right? It was not fully baked in many ways. But that's the beauty of open source, because you're now going to get the whole world practically, as your audience, and people are going to look at your code and give you feedback. You will hear some negative feedback as well, which is good, and if you take it in the right spirit. But the fact that practically the whole world is going to look at your code and try to make it better is a very powerful thing. And that's what I said earlier, that if we had not open sourced karate, it would probably have, died a natural death, and people wouldn't have used it and so on. In fact, I got so many more ideas after just putting stuff out there and asking for feedback that really made karate different, took it in new directions and made it totally better. So the advice, Madan, from my side is just go and start. It can be something as simple as documentation. Hacktoberfest is coming out next month. So if you are interested in open source, please use that opportunity to just go and get your contributions into the global GitHub repository or something like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter, for those very positive tips on how to get involved in the empowerment aspects of open source. How about you, Sandeep? What are some of your tips and words of advice?
So, when I resonate with every thought that Peter mentioned, right? Don't hesitate. Go out, dive into it. It's like learning swimming. You have to jump at the deep end. So, get into open source. And one of the things is, when you start contributing to open source, you do realize that you're also creating a brand for yourself, right? When big companies are looking to hire, I know of many startups, and especially even in my own place, I look at open source projects, look at people who are working on it, and I would like to ideally have them in my system, right? Because they are experimental by nature, and in a product and a startup, it's very important to experiment. Like Peter said, right? You need the negative feedback, and you should be ready to fail, right? We learned this from childhood, right? Sharing is caring, and failure is the stepping stone to success. All of this stuff. It's very true about open source, right? We need to kind of keep our mind open, go out there, try it. And I tell everybody who's, always find yourself an open source alternative. Don't stop because you hit a roadblock somewhere. There's something out there someone has done which can help you solve. And technically today, every programmer, whether it's Ruby or Python, is living on open source, right? Because every library he uses is open source. For me, the only advice is go out there and get to it. Don't try to, and like Peter said, what is the right thing or where's the right point to start? There's no right point, just start, right? And then you'll get there. You make a mistake, you'll make 100 mistakes. That's okay. You'll make one good thing and that becomes big.
Thanks so much, Sandeep, and thanks, Peter. I think 3 key takeaways from me from this outstanding discussion are what I would call the 3 C's: capability, culture, and collaboration. You definitely need to have the capability to understand how open source works, the communication methods, the tool libraries, and so on. You also need to collaborate with the broader ecosystem. It's not a one-man show or a one-woman show. You need to collaborate with the whole ecosystem, and that takes a certain culture, a certain mindset of embracing, as you mentioned, failure, experimentation, growth, and an open mindset. Thank you all so much for an outstanding discussion. I wish you all the best in your journeys, and thanks to our audience for joining us today. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you.